To maybe lay the groundwork and some context for some of the stuff we're going to talk about, maybe you just give us a little bit of your background and catch people up.
Yeah, I mean, you got a quite a different audience out here, and for those that really want to know my full story, 6 months ago or so, I did a episode with Brent Tucker on Anti-Hero. So you can hear my funny life story there, but in a nutshell, man, I did 23 years, Army Special Ops, between half my time in Ranger Regiment and the other half in the Special Missions Unit out of Bragg. Did a lot of deployments, a lot of time overseas. I could be citizens in Iraq, Afghanistan, and parts of Africa.
For as much time as you spent there?
Yeah. So yeah, man, that was my life growing up. And, at some point you're just beat down mentally and physically, and you decide it's time to hang up the guns and move on.
Well, let's talk about that just for a second. Like, how do you know? It's got to be tough, man.
I joke about this, but I knew a couple years before I actually did it.
Okay.
I was just in a really bad spot. I look back, and the catalyst for me was November 2014. I was in Mali, of all places, and I got a bad case of malaria and almost died from it.
Wow.
But when I came back home is when it really hit me. And it was just the worst timing of my life. My first daughter was born, and the next day, I got home from deployment 2 days before her birth. The next day, I was in the hospital for what ended up being like 6 to 9 months.
Wow. Okay.
So the meds
I'd forgotten that part of the story, man. I do remember hearing the story, but hold on a second. I mean, no vaccination for...
No, I was taking... Well, there was no vaccine back then for malaria. Apparently there is now, but you take doxycycline and then methylquin and a couple other drugs they give you. Basically, you take doxy while you're in country, and then afterwards, when you deploy home, they give you the stronger stuff to kill it off, the parasite off in your liver.
It's a gnarly one, yeah.
Which is what nailed me. It killed my liver almost.
Yeah.
So I was at Duke and Mayo Clinic and all the top hospitals across America for the next 6 to 9 months getting my
dialysis.
No, I didn't have to do liver dialysis because they basically said you got to wait for your body to kick all this
stuff out. Yep.
And I went from 180, 85 pounds down to 120 in a month.
Wow.
I was bright yellow, jaundice, and just had this bad rashes all over my body from all the toxins coming out my pores. I almost killed myself a couple times. It was bad. The only reason I didn't was because I had a brand new baby. That was my first child.
So it's interesting. The thing that saves you is the thing that practically kills you. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of years before you're feeling it, right? And then you go on this final, I assume was your final deployment, right? You come home and now you're just completely wrecked. I mean, is it safe to say this is rock bottom, or we haven't reached that yet?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
That was after retirement.
Okay.
My whole point to the malaria story was not, oh, woe me, whatever. I lost plenty of friends in combat that would have probably taken malaria over the bullet. But that was really the start of my downhill slide mentally, because that sleep deprivation for that long, I just didn't recover from it because I got better. The unit sent me off to a place to train for 2 months and put my weight back on. So physically I got better, but the sleep aspect never caught back up. And I was back into doing night ops and missions and the constant cycle of the machine, right? But by the time I took over a team, and my guys will tell you this too, like I was not in a good spot.
Not the same guy.
Yeah. And I joke, I was like Brett Favre holding on for another season.
That I can relate to.
Right. Yeah. So it was not great. And finally I decided it was time to pull the plug and go do something else.
Okay. Interesting. Like you talked about the sleep deprivation, which is part of the reason I opened up with that question. I don't think what people understand is that the brain will actually rewire itself, when you're not sleeping like that. I mean, it'll actually kill you.
Yeah.
The lack of sleep will actually kill you if you go on for too long. The brain has to recover, and if it's never in that point where it can, and that happens during sleep, it's the one place it does happen. Is you get in these different levels of sleep, that people may, REM, non-REM type stuff that people might be sort of familiar with, but not have a full understanding of, is you said something about there being physically you were able to get back, but that's only one part of the equation, because really the body is like an extension of the brain. And so you can, and especially if, I'm sure based on your background, like being physical is something you're super familiar with, and your body's going to have, people call it like muscle memory or whatever. It's not really that, but at the same time, you had a high training age and your body's going to respond to putting more calories back in the system, right? Hitting the weights again,
comes back quick.
It comes back probably pretty quick. And so like physically from the outside, you're looking at yourself going, hey, I'm back, right? Like my pants are not falling down when I'm putting, I don't have to belt it, you belt my pants up the same way, or it was after I lose 20 pounds or whatever it was, or however many pounds it was, right? Like I'm pushing the same weights again, I'm able to run the mile times, whatever the thing is, right? I'm able to handle the physical aspect of this, which is interesting. And I think there's we start to get into how the brain rewires itself, but also more specifically, like hormone reactions and chemical reactions that you had trained your body to be able to get through, I'm sure, through stress management, right? And how to deal with certain things. This is funny.
That's what they train us for.
Exactly. It's like
austere environments, up for days at a time. Yeah. You still got to go do a hostage rescue.
That becomes normal. Yeah. That becomes like the new normal, right? And then, so there's this funny interplay that's going on between like the hormones in your body and what you should be getting from certain things and what you're not. Like most people, I don't think recognize kind of what they're chasing in the gym is like that cortisol, right? And that's a good thing. It tells the nutrients in the body where to go, right? It switches other things on in the system to help with the recovery process and get things moving. In that kind of a training, what you're doing is constantly learning how to regulate that and bring that down. And then there's the other side of it where there's like testosterone. There's an interesting interplay there as it relates to when you start looking at the brain. I don't want to bore people with this, but just kind of setting the stage, like the amygdala, which is like that fear, that part of the brain that'll tell you to be afraid of this or help you make a better decision.
Your fight or flight.
Right? And
I don't think it bores people because everybody out there's heard of this stuff before. And honestly, it took me a long time to actually understand all of it. And, you brought up cortisol, right? Everybody thinks cortisol is the devil, but it's really not.
It's the one that makes you fat.
Yeah.
Right.
But
excuse me.
My wife's a doctor and she deals with hormones specifically. Okay. And she's taught me a ton the last few years, but in my own journey, I've figured it out as well. But cortisol, you need cortisol in the morning when you first wake up. You want that shit to spike.
It's requirement.
Right.
Right.
But people don't know that. They think cortisol's bad. It's belly fat.
Right.
But the key is, and what we're going to talk about later, is bringing that down throughout the day. You want the cortisol spike in the morning first thing, but you want to bring it down after lunch and continue to bring it down all the way through sleep. And you want it to be at your lowest point during your deep sleep and your REM. And then you spike it again the next morning.